Good morning, girls. Today we will discuss about motion. We will learn about motion and certain important terms related to it. Okay? Now, a tree is fixed at a place. So we say that it is stationary. Okay? Similarly, a house, a school, a factory, electric pole, telephone poles, all are stationary objects which remain fixed at a place. On the other hand, a man, animal, bird, car, bus, train, aeroplane, etc. do not remain stationary all the time. They can move from one place to another place. So, a common characteristic of all moving bodies is that they can change their position with time. Okay, so we can now define motion as a body is said to be in motion or moving when its position changes continuously with respect to a stationary object taken as reference point. For example, when the position of a car changes continuously with respect to a stationary object like house and tree, we say that the car is moving or that the car is in motion. Okay, so when an object is changing its place from one place to another place, that object is known as it's said to be in motion. Okay, so if I'm talking here and I'm sitting here, then I'm not changing my place, so I will be in a state of rest. So there is a clear demarcation, a clear difference between the two state of an object, that is rest and motion. When in motion, the object is changing its place. When in rest, the object is stationary. It is not moving. It is not changing the place. So we will talk about the object or the state of motion first. Okay. So there are certain things that is related that we need to know about motion. Okay. So motion is the change in position of a body with time. Motion can be described in terms of the distance moved or the displacement. Distance moved is the actual length of the path traveled by the body, while the displacement is the length of the shortest path traveled by a body from initial position to its final position. So, first let's discuss some of the important terms related to motion. Okay, that is distance as well as displacement. These two terms are related to the path covered. Like when we talk about path covered, so when I move from or I go from my home to school, okay, so this distance from my home to school is 500 meters. Okay, so I am walking and I am traveling that distance of 500 meters from my home to school. So I'm traveling this 500 meters, so this is my distance covered. Okay, so now when we talk about displacement, fine, so when I'm there at school and from my home, my displacement is also equal to the distance covered. But when I come back to my home, okay, after dispersal, when I come back to my home, my total distance covered will be 500 plus 500. Okay, so I'm covering that 1 kilometer or 1000 meter of the distance. Okay, so the total distance covered is 1 kilometer or 1000 meter. But what is displacement? How much I displaced from the morning by covering this 1000 meter? I can say that my displacement is 0. Why? Because I am here at my home to my original position after moving that 1000 meters. Okay, so my displacement is 0. Fine. So motion can be described in terms of distance as well as displacement. So when we talk about motion, there is two types of motion: uniform motion and non-uniform motion. So when we talk about uniform motion, if a body travels equal distance in equal interval of time, it is known as uniform motion. What is non-uniform motion? If the body travels unequal distance in equal intervals of time, it is said to be non-uniform motion. For example, the movement of clock hand and movement of pendulum is the example of uniform motion because it is taking equal time for covering equal distance. Okay, now the moment of asteroid and the bouncing of the ball is asteroid and the bouncing of ball is example of non-uniform motion because it can cover different distance in the different or same time interval. Fine. Next, now when we talk about motion, we have discussed about distance as well as displacement. Okay, now come to the next term that is related to motion, that is speed. Speed of a body is the distance traveled by the body in unit time. So we know how speed is calculated, right? Speed is calculated distance upon time. If a body travels a distance s in time t, then its speed is v. We demarcate speed as v and it can be calculated as s divided by t. So the SI unit of speed is meter per second. Okay, since speed has only magnitude, it is scalar quantity. Magnitude means in speed there is no direction. It is not saying or it is not talking about the direction of the object in which direction it is moving. Okay, now come to the next topic. For example, when we talk about two cars moving with different speed, that is car A is moving with speed 40 meter per second and car B is moving with speed of 30 meter per second. The red car is at speed of 30 meter per second and the gray car is at the speed of 40 meter per second. That is the red car is covering 30 meter in 1 second. Okay, and the gray car is covering 40 meter in 1 second. Now the average speed, when we talk about average speed, it is the ratio of the total distance traveled in the total time interval or the total time taken. So let's take an example for this average speed. So I have to cover 100 meter. Okay, so if I cover half of the distance, that is 50 meter in 50 second, okay, and I covered next 50 meters in 40 second. So what will be my average speed? How I can calculate my average speed? So the total distance covered is 50 plus 50, that is 100 meters, and total time taken will be 50 plus 90, that is 50 plus 40, that is 90 second. So 100 divided by 90 second. So 100 by 90 meter per second will be my average speed. Okay, now this is one example that where we can talk about the average speed. Now a car travels 85 kilometer from point A to point B, then 45 kilometer from B to C, right? The total time taken was 1.3 hours. What was the average speed of the car? Now the solution, we can solve this problem by following steps. Now we can calculate total distance, that is total distance between distance covered from A to B and distance covered from B to C. So the total distance will be 85 kilometer plus 45 kilometer, that is 130 kilometer. Okay, now we have the total time. Fine, so the total time is 1.3 hours. So how we can calculate average speed? That is total distance covered by total time. 130 divided by 1.3 hours. Okay, 130 kilometers divided by 1.3 hours, that is 100 kilometer per hour. This will be the average speed of the car. Fine, there will be few more examples. You can solve few more examples from your book or from other referred book, okay, and you can clear your concept. For today, this is all about motion, okay. Now we will discuss different topics in the next video. Thank you and have a nice day.